Welcome to the Courage Never Quits podcast, where members of the West Point class of 1986 tell their stories. I'm your host, Paul LaFontaine. As always, the views expressed in this podcast are those of the participants and not of West Point, the Army, or any organization. Let's go to the podcast. Pilar McDermott, welcome to the podcast.
Good morning. How are you, Paul?
Doing great. I'm super excited about this one. We have crossed paths many times after graduation and after over a period of time. We just hadn't had a chance to sit down and talk. And it was just terrific to catch up with you when I was up at the Mexican restaurant near the Academy. We always have to specify
Hacienda.
that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
The one place everybody knows La Hacienda, right? Where are you sitting today in the world?
I am in the Hudson Valley of New York, and it is snowy here. And I graduated from high school in Poughkeepsie. So
You did?
is, even though where I'm living now is the 26th house I've ever lived in, it's about as close to home as I can claim.
26 houses.
Yeah.
What was the engine for that? One is obviously the Army, but what was the engine for 26 houses?
The big one was the Army. My father worked for the State Department of Corrections, so we moved around a lot when I was a kid, all in New York State. But
Right.
I was a warden's daughter, which isn't as fun as it
Is that right?
it wasn't as interesting as it sounds. Yeah, exactly. So,
In
but I
all those
lived
movies, the warden's daughter always comes up in some way. So
Right,
you were a
yeah,
star
exactly.
early in life.
Right. Yeah, no, it was just another part of my awkward adolescence, So
Well, we all had our awkwardness to bear, I guess we'd say.
yes, yeah.
And how is the moving around that much manifested in terms of, are you like you only have a few items you take everywhere, or are you a collector? Because some people collect a lot of stuff and stay in one place, and others of us don't. How do you view carrying all that stuff along to so many houses?
It's interesting. I have too much stuff, like a lot of other people. The first time that I had to move myself after the Army, I could not believe how much it cost because, of course, the Army always did it. And I'm a historian, so I have a ton of books which counted as professional weight and didn't matter. And then I had to pay for it. So I do need to pare some things down for sure now. But the opposite actually. I have because I've never really had a home. A home base. I think that I have some things that I count as home that go up, as soon as I move into a place. My mother's family is Spanish. So I have like a number of Spanish plates, for instance, that I've gotten in Spain. Those are usually the first things that go up in the kitchen. This time of year, we're recording on the 23rd of December. I have like a bunch of Christmas things that go out every Christmas time, for instance. So I have some things that make it home wherever I go. But other than that, it's, I have things that I haven't unpacked really for a shamefully long time.
A common thing. And as a
Yeah.
historian, how has your relationships to books changed over the years relative to digital media? And what's your philosophy of that?
Well, I was a purist, although I wouldn't say a Luddite. I love books. I mean, I was a history major at West Point. That's what I have my graduate degrees in. I mean, I love it. And I was always a reader when I was a kid. I have a picture of myself reading the encyclopedia. So it's a wonder that I kept my lunch money throughout 12 years of public education, right? But the thing with digital media, a lot of the history books that I did Renaissance Reformation history. So they're books nobody reads. But the books that
At
I
West
did
Point?
read, in Kindle, you can highlight things, and then at the end of a book, you have all of your notes and all of your highlights at once. Actually, it was incredible. So I'm totally about digital media these days. I read a lot on audiobooks, and I am an early adopter of audiobooks.
I think that's great. Yeah, there's certain advantages to it. You don't take the notes, obviously, but I find I buy more physical books after listening to the audio because I appreciate it and actually want to go back and read it. So, history. So you're reading encyclopedia when you're young. Did that lead you to West Point, or how did West Point and history come together for the warden's daughter in Poughkeepsie?
Yeah, let's not lead with that. That gets a little freaky. But well, I always read, and I'm the oldest of four kids born. I was 3.5 years when the youngest one was born. So we were what you would call a pretty tight shot group. And so, having moved around so much, there was always, I always needed to keep myself occupied. And I think I was just curious about things and people and the world. And and I just always loved, like a lot of people that join the army, and I think a lot of people at West Point, I didn't have money for college. And so, but I think the story begins with me finding out about the world and making my world bigger than it was at the time through reading and the adventures. And I just found it unbelievable that all of these things could happen in different places in the world. I just have a insatiable curiosity, which I think is a huge gift that I've been given. I think it's one of the bigger gifts that I've been given, is just I'm just curious about people in the world. But I didn't have any money for college. And I was a rower in high school. And because I lived in Poughkeepsie, I went to Arlington High School in Poughkeepsie that's where I went my junior and senior year of high school. And they had a rowing team because it's right on the Hudson. And so that was one of the sports I did. I played field hockey and I ran cross country as well. But when you were a girl in 1980, because of Title IX, if you were on a decent rowing program, you were recruited because rowing is so expensive that it
Right.
offsets football and other sports programs. In fact, even now, men's rowing in college is in a separate like college rowing program, and women's rowing is usually Division I for the financial balance sheet
Is
for
that
that.
right? I didn't know
And
that.
so, yeah, so I was recruited by Navy and I was recruited by University of Pennsylvania, which is kind of ironic because I ended up going there for graduate school. And that's how I found out that the academies were free, like free.
That's
And
part of the recruiting process. Suddenly that came
right,
up.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But I have bad eyes, and in 1982, they didn't give waivers for very nearsighted people, because everyone was going to be Top Gun.
Yeah.
And so the congressman's office, I had gone through the entire like process, the medical and everything like that. And my congressman's office called me and said, "We have a slot open to West Point. Are you interested in going there?" God bless the people in the office who must have been dealing with a lot of people like me, because I said, "Is it free?" And they said, "Yes, yeah. Yeah, it's free too, type of thing." I was like, "Yes, I'd love to go to West Point." So I
But
went.
the rowing wasn't a thing. In other words, they hadn't been one of the places that reach out to you.
No, well, actually, West Point didn't have a rowing program until we were
Really?
cadets. I was one of the two cadets that began the rowing program there. I don't even remember who the other cadet was, but I did the analysis of the Hudson as a feasibility for rowing, like the safety stuff, because I had rowed on the Hudson. And then the other guy did like the West Point, club activity things. And then it was approved. And I remember them giving me a call my yearling year, I think the end of my yearling year, beginning of my cow year. It was the Baker brothers. There were two Bakers, and I think they may both have been in the law department, like Major Baker and Lieutenant Colonel Baker. And they were from Washington. They were from Seattle and had gone either to UW for undergraduate or for law school. I forget, but
Right.
Seattle's a big rowing
Yeah.
place also. And they asked me how much I weighed. And so I told them, how much I weighed. And they said, "You're too big to be a coxswain." And I said, "Yes, sir. I know I'm a rower. I know I'm too big to be a coxswain." And they
And
said,
there's
"We're
only
only
two of us.
yeah,
So that
right.
put a lot of load on the other guy if you were
Yeah. So, and they said, "Well, we're only going to have a men's rowing program to start with." And so pretty much thanks for playing. And so I never got to row at West
kidding.
Point. They began the women's program after we graduated, I think in 1988 or so. But it all came full circle in actually three different ways. When I went back to teach the first time, I became the assistant novice rowing coach. So I coached rowing at West Point. My daughter was a rower when I went back for permanent faculty. So her high school competed at the academy, at the Army Rowing Center that's there. And so she benefited from, the whatever tiny little seeds that I put down.
Yeah.
And then after I retired, I went back to rowing because I had been on a team of some sort since I was 13 years old. And I really was adrift when I retired. I hadn't
Right.
realized that, even though I was interacting with people and that was great, like no one really depended on me for showing up. I went up to Poughkeepsie and the Hudson River Rowing Association I joined. And actually, I rowed with some of the people I had rowed with in high
Is
school.
that right?
Yeah, so I did masters rowing and competed, of course, because everything's a competition if it's going to be fun. And I actually dropped some weight and was a coxswain for the team at Head of the Charles race, which is the biggest regatta in the United States. And there's like 7 bridges. It's in Boston. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it is such a technical. And I had been a coxswain for 7 weeks at the time and coxed the men's team through it. And
Is that right?
I did not crash the shell, which is something that 2 of the coxswains in my race couldn't say. So I didn't come in last. And I brought everyone home safely. And
Well, we got to call those Baker
yeah,
brothers
so
and say you were a coxswain after all.
I
Right?
was, yeah, absolutely. And so I
They
should
missed
tell
it.
them, I'm like, it all worked out. So yeah, but
Oh, now
yeah,
not only are you curious, you are a person of great enthusiasms, and
yes,
I want to get right to it, and let's
okay,
talk about dancing,
yes,
right? Because when we talked about doing this podcast, we said, what's the big news? Is we could go back to be our time as laundry carriers, as we were laughing about earlier, but really talk about dancing, how you came to it, like the circumstances around you becoming an accomplished dancer.
yes. Well, yes. When we were at the hacienda, we had a small but friendly disagreement whether I was the only classmate who owned more than one outfit with rhinestones. I think probably not, but you seem to think I am. But I've always, yeah, I know. I've always loved dancing. I'm from a family where, during family parties, the adults pushed the furniture up against the wall and everybody danced, in the middle or in the middle of the room or in the driveway or something like that. So we were always dancing. My father taught me how to Lindy hop. When I have 27 first cousins, I was always going to weddings. And so I've always grown up thinking that I could dance, which is also like another lovely thing for a girl to think that she has some skill. At West Point, I don't think I'm the only person that was like, oh, I didn't realize I was so bad at so many things.
Right, right,
Um,
right.
yeah, yeah.
An
I did
unfortunate
not peak at
realization.
West Point. Yeah. I I graduated from West Point one big ball of potential. And so here I am, a couple of decades later. And I love dancing at West Point. So, I mean, I have great John Wilson or Jonathan Wildman now. He was one of my favorite dance partners. And I remember the people I danced with at Cullum. So if they're watching, thank you so much,
It's
for
amazing
that.
how many stories our dear friend John comes up in relative to his dancing so hard that he sweated through his dress gray. That
Yes,
was
yeah, I'm sure he was dancing with me one of those times. So he was fantastic. So I send this out to him if he happens to be watching. So thank you. Those were really just joyous and fun times, especially you think about a Cullum, you're like, that was crazy.
right.
So, and I've, spent a lot of time in my 20s dancing, which is a really nice way of saying I spent way too much time in bars and honky tonks and dance
I
clubs.
wasn't going to say it. I'm
Yeah,
glad you
right.
did.
I was dancing. So, well, I was in
Great.
Germany, so I went to all those great,
Sure.
like new wave clubs that they had. I mean, European
Yeah.
dance music is great stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I had a dance instructor, a coach come in when I first began. He said, "Where's your dance training from?" And I said, like, I don't have any dance training. And he goes, no, where'd you learn to dance? And I said, well, my father taught me how to dance. He goes, no, where did you dance? And I said, in the clubs. And he goes, what club? And I'm like, all of the clubs, all of the clubs. That's where I danced, all of the clubs. And then I was in Arizona and Oklahoma. So I learned how to 2-step. So that's where I learned how to partner
You've
dance.
been building pattern recognition of different forms of dance since you were a child.
They say it's the best thing to ward off Alzheimer's because of the music, the
Yeah.
patterns,
Got all
the social interaction, the trust that it takes. I mean, it really is something wild. And
the
I
social
tell
element because you're meeting people and you're connecting with
right,
people in that way, right? Yeah.
exactly. And I'm telling all of my classmates out there, if you can march, you can dance
Knock off
because
all the golfing. Let's start dancing.
Exactly, right. Yeah, like I need dance partners. There are
If you
women
could
out there.
march,
I
you could
taught my
dance.
son how to dance when he was like 10 or 11 because I said a boy who can dance will always have a partner.
Yeah, that's
So come
right.
on, guys. But
That's
you
brilliant.
hit your foot lands on the beat and you transfer your body between the beat. That's dancing. That's marching, right?
Which is
For it.
marching as well.
And
Good point.
so I've always loved dancing. But after the pandemic, I needed to get out there. I had gone through a breakup. I was in a new place where I really didn't know that many people. And so I decided I was going to learn how to Argentine tango because I didn't know how to do that.
Okay,
And in fact, I still am studying that. And I've never been so bad at something for so long.
sure.
It's really
What is
hard.
it about the Argentine tango that takes a longer
I,
learning
I,
cycle?
it has such a specific music that it's very difficult. It's just a completely unfamiliar music, and I find myself hesitating, not knowing where the next beat's going to be. And you are so close to your partner. You're so close to your partner. I was dancing with an Argentinian man, and he pulled me so close that, in the embrace, that I actually went, "Señor, señor," in Spanish. I'm like, I'm an American. Like, you can't be I'm underneath you. Like, you can't be holding me this close. And he made some comment that was the point of tango, and I was like, well, yeah, okay. So, for it. But when I went to the
We need a
studio,
warm-up period, Senor.
yeah, señor. So, but yeah, I mean,
Right.
yeah, Argentinians, but Argentine tango instructors do not suffer a lack of confidence. So, but when I was in the studio, I saw some students preparing for a ballroom dance competition, and went, I bet I could do that. And here I am. So again, it's just that competitive nature, the curiosity, the learning.
Let's talk about your competitive
Yeah.
run here. Your career's too formal a word. So talk about that. So you entered. What was your first competition?
The first competition I entered about 5 months after I started ballroom dancing. There's different levels of competition. They call it bronze, silver, gold, and then open. And so what you'd see on Dancing with the Stars is open. Bronze, silver, and gold, there's a certain syllabus with certain steps, and you can only use those steps to compete at that level. It's like most competitive sports, except it's really interesting because you have the technique where you're showing them what you can do, but
Mhm.
part of the evaluation is showing who you are, the artistic sense of it, which I find absolutely revelatory. I did not know even who I was, really, and I'm still discovering.
So
I
talk a little
find it
bit
very
about that.
vulnerable. Yeah,
How does
very
that?
frightening for it.
How do you express yourself artistically as an individual? Just what are some concepts that those of us who don't understand, haven't done it, would relate to? Like, how would you explain it to the non-dancer?
Yeah, the first style. There's four styles of dancing that you would. Well, actually, there's like five styles of dancing you would see on Dancing with the Stars. Which, weirdly, I have never seen a full episode of Dancing with the Stars
Is
or
that right?
Strictly Ballroom, the British version. I've seen clips um, on the internet, but I've
Sure.
never watched it. I understand it's fun. The four one is standard ballroom, which is like the European, Viennese waltz, just twirling around in the embrace the entire time. There's American smooth, which is where it's like Fred Astaire, where you're dancing together and then spinning and opening up sideways. So those are both done with the long dresses. And then there is American rhythm, which has like the swing and mambo, and there's three other dances with that. And right now I'm competing. I've competed in ballroom and American smooth, and right now I'm focusing on international Latin, which is cha-cha, samba, rumba, paso doble, and jive. And so those are so you have to learn certain dances for that. I forget what your original question was before
No,
I
no, no.
went.
So these are all the standard forms, and then
Yes.
inside that you express your own flair, for lack of a
Right,
better word.
exactly.
And
And then
so how does that work?
there are the social dances, salsa and bachata, merengue, that type of thing. The Lindy Hop, And so, yeah, so you have to learn the dances, you have to learn the technique of
Yeah,
it.
the technical
Right,
baseline of it, right?
it's,
Yeah, sure.
the drills over and over again, the balance, because once you get onto the competition floor, you can't be thinking about what you're doing. Like your body, you have to have the muscle memory for that, and you have to go as big and as bold as you can because it is an expressive art form, um, which, you know, I'm kind of like, you know,
But that's
but
not
it
a
is
concept
too.
that our classmates would not completely understand. Muscle memory and training is part of the baseline of technical and tactical proficiency, but really then how you apply that becomes your own initiative and these types of things. So it's a similar framework, right?
Oh
You
yeah, yeah, and actually, that's one of the reasons I tell, most of my friends are military people. This is how
Mhm.
I spent my adult life, retiring from it. That the things that make me, because I've been fairly successful considering how the short period of time I've been competitively dancing. One is I have very strong legs from the army, right, from running for that. But the other is that I don't know how to stop, right? Like in so many ways, it's like, no, I know how to suck it up. And that's,
Right.
when you've been doing jive over and over and over again, and you think a lung's going to come out, you're like, oh, I've been here before. I hope there's a bucket near the door.
There's a little
Because I've
motto we
done
have
that a couple of
in
times, right?
common,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's a little motto
So,
we have in common. You just don't quit.
yeah, you're right. Courage never quits. And which I can come back to later because I think bigger, it has bigger
Yeah, well,
ramifications
definitely.
now.
So talk.
But yeah,
We don't want to make this about status, but as our premier dancer, so that first competition, kind of talk about some of the achievements because it's fun to recognize what you've been able to achieve. So
yeah.
you've won a few competitions, I think, right?
I have, yes, I have. I haven't won also, and so I think that was interesting because it really made me. It actually was like one of these flex points for me as an adult because I don't think I'm the only person listening to this that I'm used to being good at the things that I work hard towards, and not winning actually kind of surprised me a few times because I. Sometimes I've had more confidence than ability, and I didn't realize there was that disconnect there
Yeah, yeah.
for it. Um, but
It's super healthy though, right? To reset.
it
Right.
is, and it's as a leader, just to kind of go on a little detour. As a leader, I have found it wildly important to remember what it feels like not being good at something, like not even being okay at something, just how painful it is to kind of not be able to level up at the speed that I wanted to, and having to check in with myself, whether it mattered. I think that one of the more important things I learned during my career, and I wish I had known it at West Point, is I heard somebody say that discipline is remembering what you want and really getting focused on the idea of like, what am I doing? What do I want? And especially now that allegedly I'm in the second half of my life, what is it that I want to do with the rest of my time? But
Sure.
remembering like how scary it is to just want something that I don't have yet and keep working towards it, I think is a really important way of connecting with, younger leaders or new leaders for that. And so I think it has made me a much more approachable person, because I know what it's like to just go out on the floor and not really be in control and not be able to translate any of my past successes forward.
Right.
Like this
Right.
is something new.
It's a bit of a trap at our age that we believe we can build on this base and master anything
Right.
quickly, but that's not actually true. So the Argentine
Right.
tango would be would be an
Right.
example of something
It's
that
it's
the fact that
definitely
you were a
one of
mail
them.
carrier at West Point doesn't really help.
Yeah, it did. Although it does help, I will say a lot of it does help. Where it's well, I'll tell you a story about the U.S. dance competition in a second, but because that's my most recent competition. But so I went out there with the encouragement of my teacher, who, this is how he made his living, and you have to appreciate the immigrant hustle. He had arrived from Ukraine like 2 months before, for it, and so he was actually that was a really. And you see the studios kind of divide, and it's been very, very, very it has been really interesting, especially at the point, because I was like, this guy is the one, because there had been a news blackout. So that's why he was the one that told his mother. And then for the rest of the day, he had to teach divorcees like me in Westchester, New York, how to foxtrot. And I was just like, this is crazy. But so
It's
we
a
went
man who
out
can
there,
keep
and
focus, right? It's a man who can keep
yeah,
focus,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
So, and I think maybe that was even one of the reasons that I competed, was I just wanted to support this guy. But he was a very good instructor, and I won. I don't know. I won like three-quarters of the dances that I danced, and then I was hooked.
There you
Because
go.
again, there some of the things do translate. Like I know how to get up in front of a group of people and just go for it.
Yeah.
Like that's what we do,
You've given
right?
presentations as a leader in the Army and as
Right.
a consultant of note. So I mean, you know how to get up in front of a crowd.
Right, exactly. And then I think, from the time I was 17 years old, of going, if you're going to do it, you need to do it. Like you can't be half-assing this stuff. And so, but I felt ridiculous. I was wearing more makeup than I think I had ever worn in my entire life put together, completely, completely. I mean, it was nuts. And I was wearing this dress with, I felt like, and I think I probably did say, I was like, this is not my brand. Like, this is not my brand at all. And, but I went out there and I love dancing. I just love it. And
For you.
I love the music. I loved the energy. And then I had some success with it. And so then I started dancing a couple of different ones. I've won a couple of well, I've won several competitions
It's
for that,
great.
since I know that might come up. But in one of the competitions for a particular dance, I came in fourth, and instead of a trophy and a medal, with one, two, three, they gave me this medal, and I didn't see it until. And I fortunately had also gotten a trophy and had gotten other medals, but I looked at it, and it was a red embossed medal that said participation award, right? And I'm glad I also had a trophy next to it, right? Because otherwise I would have been like, because I was like, a participation award. I didn't even know these things were real, much less
Yeah.
embossed, right? I thought they were just like one of these urban
Beautifully
legends.
embossed.
And but I keep it, and I keep it where I can see it, because I said to myself, good for me. I am participating in my own damn life here.
Yeah.
Good for me. And like, hopefully I don't need medals to keep showing up for myself, doing the things that I love. And so,
So how
so
how do
that
you
actually may be my favorite.
how do you balance or think about that competitive nature that was kind of encouraged in us all the way from age 18 all the way up through the Army and then that artistic bit, which really the medal doesn't matter. It's how do you balance those two, or how do you approach it?
Um, and this probably reflects a lot about where I come from. Not having had money, when I was a kid, for it. But I think that a lot of the things I've done in life, and I don't think I'm unique, and I don't, necessarily give myself a hard time about it. I did them because somebody promised there was a reward at the end of it. And that's how I supported my family. That's how I supported myself. And you keep hitting those gates, and eventually you miss the last brass ring. But I think for a long time, as self-actualized as I would like to think that I think I was at whatever appropriate level there was external validation for what I was doing. And when it came time for me to actually put my money down to do this, because it's an expensive sport. I mean, it's like golfing, it's like boating, for that, just be, and that is something I don't like about it. The cost of the dresses, the cost of the competition, all the, because I
The
dance,
travel, right? I mean, you have to
and
travel to different.
travel. Yeah, absolutely. And I dance pro-am, professional amateur. So I dance with my instructor. So of course I pay him for the travel. I pay his expenses. I pay for the lessons, for that. And the people that I dance with are European champions. They are, Blackpool champions. Blackpool is like the Olympics of ballroom dancing. So I am, because I'm in the New York area. So I get to dance with champions, for this at a high level, and it costs money. And
Well, just to
at
be
the
clear, when
beginning,
you call out and say, "Oh, you've won a few things," I mean you're competing at a high level here. I mean we're
I
right.
am, yes. Yeah, I am. I'm competing in competitions in the New York area in particular, but I did go
It's
to
like
the
Mark
United.
Esper saying, "Oh, I did some things in defense," right? It's just like, yeah, okay, Mark, right? Okay, Pilar, yeah, you just won a few, right? So just
Right. Well,
you wouldn't say
here's
this
keeping
yourself, but I'm going
democracy.
to say it because I'm
Here's
hosting the
keeping
podcast. You're kind of a rock
here's
star in the
keeping
game.
democracy safe for the world, and I was doing Paso Doble, but same. But the but he but and I told myself for a long time that if I was spending that type of money, I better win, because otherwise I really couldn't justify it. And I'm glad that it kind of took me out for a little bit, because I didn't win some things that I thought that I would, and 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 I was like, why do I need to win? Like, who am I justifying this to? And it was to myself, it was to imaginary voices, for it. I was like, I get to spend the money doing, I have the money. I'm not in debt, I'm very thankful for that. But like, no, I get to do things that I just love doing. I get to compete because I love competing. It doesn't, like, I need to like reset that I don't just get to do this if I can show somebody that it mattered, that I did it. And that was very freeing for me, you know, for it. And actually and then I injured myself fairly seriously. I ruptured my plantar plate, underneath my left foot. I tore the bottom of my left foot. And so I didn't think I'd be able to dance again. And that's when I started doing the international Latin dancing, which is just like crazy feminissima and like, you know, sexy. It's just sexy is what it is. And I was like, I was a colonel. I don't know about that, right? I'll have good posture, but I'm not promising anything else. And then I didn't think that I'd be able to dance again, competitively, or maybe even at
So you were
all.
doing that Latin dance prior to the injury, and then you didn't know whether you can continue on with it.
Right. And I couldn't do other types of dance that require you to go up on your toe. And so, and I said to myself, and thank God for physical therapists. I just want to shout out to physical therapists thank you for helping me get back to my life. I am very, very grateful for what they do, although it hurts. If you tell a physical therapist it hurts when I do this, they're like, okay, do that 50 times. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
If I'm ever arrested, it'll probably be in a physical therapy office, and I'm claiming self-defense. I'm like, they were hurting me for it.
Right.
But then I said to myself, I don't want to be 80 years old or 70 years old or 65 years old and say I didn't do what I loved because I was shy. I spent way too much time being shy, like at West Point, and, just feeding my awkwardness and insecurities that I don't think I realized that everyone has. I was like, it's just me. It's just me. And I isolated myself in a lot of different ways because of it. And I said, I'm just going to go for it. What are they going to do?
Yeah.
What are they going? What's the
There's
world
no
going
they.
to do?
Right? There's not even a they.
I know. So now I go in and I am like about as extra as can be, like using my arms and doing sexy things, and to the point that one of my instructors, I was like doing, all the
Yeah.
things, and he goes, "Whoa."
Senora.
and I was like, I didn't want to do it either. Okay. So I thought that's what I was supposed
Whoa,
to do.
senora. I am from Argentina. We do not do that in my country.
Exactly. And so my pro tip to all of you out there is you use the back of your hand to touch yourself. That's what I learned at that point.
Okay,
He's like, you
good.
need
Well,
to
that's,
use the
you know
back of your
what?
hand.
This is about practical advice. Keep that in
Practical
mind.
advice. Pro tip that you have to use the back of your hand to touch your
Okay.
body, because
Got it.
otherwise it does look like you're feeling yourself up, and apparently that's not what's
That's not
required.
okay. Good.
I was like,
Good.
I think I'll win if I do that, but he's like, you won't. And so now I'm just like completely extra, and I love it.
Oh,
I feel ridiculous, but I don't
coming out
feel
of the
as
injury, are
ridiculous
you
as
able to
you.
do all the forms or is there any limitation?
There was, but I went to physical therapy for 6 months, and
Got through it.
just this past week, actually, I'm back in high heels to do it.
Terrific.
That was also part of the issue, is that really, unless you wear high heels, you you could compete. You're not going to win
Right.
because
It's part of the form.
that's just the way it is. But my story about, so I won in August of this past year, I won the Empire Dance Sport Championship. So I'm in New York. It's a huge New York competition for that. And it was my first competition since being injured. It was my first competition in about a year, about 13 months. And I won it. I mean, for the rest of the story, I need to be immodest. I won every dance and not by like a little bit, right? And so I'm like, I am back. Look at me
Right
go.
on.
Yeah. So I decided to go down to the United States Dance Sport Championship, which is held at Dolphin Hotel at Disney, and it is the United States Dance Sport Championship. I mean, it's the big one. That's where you become a national champion. And I was like, who knows? Who knows? I could. And so the morning that it was the morning that I was supposed to compete, and my first heat was at 6:49 in the morning.
Oh boy.
At 24, and I had already been up getting my hair and makeup, so I was back, and I had to put on my tanning makeup.
Sure.
Because you have to. It's a lot. It's so entirely extra, and my dress and my nails and this and that.
Yeah.
And at 5:24 in the morning, I discovered I was trapped inside my hotel room. The by myself. My sister was on the outside of the door. That's how we realized that she couldn't get in, I couldn't get out. And because she was going to help me tan my back,
Yeah.
right? So I had the front of me tanned. So picture that I have the front of me tanned. I don't have the back of me tanned. And I'm locked in a hotel room at 5:24 in the morning.
Just as an aside, what mechanical thing would happen where you couldn't open the door?
It turned out that the door lock had misaligned. So it couldn't contract mechanically, and also the the electronic laser wasn't hitting. So neither of the ways that you can unlock the door were working.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, I didn't do it. I didn't do it.
No.
No.
Literally, it was a mechanical failure on the door at an exactly wrong time, and you ended up with your back not tanned.
An electronic. And so my sister goes, again, it's 5:20 in the morning.
Yeah. Not a lot of maintenance guys hanging around at that hour, right?
Exactly. And so comes up, and I hear like the staff outside, and they can't get the door open, and they had to go. They had to go get special equipment. They had to take a hinge off the door to get me out. It was like the special equipment when they do wellness checks, like in hotel room type of things, right? And I'm standing there, in a thong, needing to be tanned, for it. I can't. Otherwise, I would have just gone without the tanning. But I was like half tanned, right?
Half tan.
Half
Which
tanned.
would have been odd. It's like the hand facing you or away from you. It's odd.
Yeah, exactly. And so then, but it took them like an hour. When they finally got the door open, then they had to repair the door. And so I had like 3 big guys in the room. And so I'm in the little hotel bathroom getting ready and everything like that. My sister's helping. God bless my sister. But so I got down to the dance floor 8 minutes before my heat. And you're supposed to line up 30 minutes before the heat. And, no practice. But it was, my sister was laughing with me. It was very stressful. But and I had a lot of adrenaline running, and I didn't do as well as I had hoped to do for sure.
You had a little disruption there at your. I imagine, like any athlete, you go through a mental process of preparing, and when that's disrupted, it actually has a non-trivial impact on your performance, right?
Right, and I don't want to be a poor sportsman and say, oh, this would have happened, but my experience is not what I had wanted it to be, for sure. But my sister, when finally they were gone, and I had 4 minutes to get dressed, she was like, "It's good you went to West Point." So I was like, yeah, I'm not sure that too many of the people that are going to be on the floor today have done uniform drills. I think, so maybe that throwback is not.
Getting ready in 5 minutes helped.
Right. And of course, I had some perspective of what was at stake. I mean, nothing. Me and my, dance ambition was at stake. Otherwise, nothing.
Yeah, but I like the way you balance this idea of winning is not so much that it's an external validation as much as an organizing principle around your progress. Right.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I study, for it. So, so I have 4 competitions this year, and I'm hoping to, I'm going back.
So now if a classmate, I don't know, of the 952 of us, if a classmate wanted to come watch one of these competitions, where would you find the information to come and watch one of our best and brightest dance? Like, how would we find this
Well,
stuff?
yeah, the United States Dance Championship is the week after Labor Day in Orlando, Florida. I'll
Orlando.
probably compete at the New York Dance Festival the third week in February. I'll
Okay.
dance at Manhattan Dance Sport Championship, which is 4th of July weekend, which is actually in Brooklyn, even though it's called the Manhattan Dance Sport Championship.
Okay.
And and then maybe something after, maybe something in the fall. So yeah, you can
So,
reach out to me. You won't, I'll have to tell you what I look like because you won't recognize me, I hope.
well,
I don't
we'll
walk
we'll
around
figure it
like
out.
you.
We have some intelligence officers amongst us, that can figure that stuff out. So Rich
Right.
Gabaldon's down in Orlando. John
Right.
Grescher's down that way. I'm down in this area. Who knows? Might show up in Orlando.
Who
I don't
knows?
know.
Who
I'm
knows?
just planting a seed. What if people did want to reach out and find out where you were competing, or just really ask you about dance, or just connect? What way do you prefer people reach out to you?
I went back to my maiden name.
Okay.
And there was no more Gmail addresses left. So I'm at Pilar, Pilar is my name, dot McDermott at yahoo.com
At
is my
Yahoo,
email.
excellent. Okay, and you prefer email is a thing you check, because really we have to check with each other about which environment we use to communicate, because there's so
Yeah,
many now.
that's really best. I'm hardly on Facebook anymore, so Facebook Messenger. Too busy dancing, you know?
Too busy
Yeah.
dancing. Well,
Yeah.
I don't want to acknowledge the fact you had a very successful career in the Army, and you also are a consultant of note. You worked with the Thayer Group for a while, and so just give us a brief overview of your Army experience, because you had a great run. So
I
talk us through
did.
it.
Yeah, no, and I'm very fortunate. I am quite surprised. I was sure that I'd get out at 5 years, 5 years or 5 stars, whichever comes first. And
Yeah.
I spent 27 years in the Army, largely because of the leaders that I had, the leaders that I worked for and that I served with and that I had the privilege of leading. And I think, and I say to the clients, that I work with, I say, HR takes care of acquisition, leaders take care of retention. And that certainly is my experience. I think it's historically accurate as a historian.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
served mostly I was a chemical officer coming out of West Point, and I got out of that as soon as I could. So I served mostly in intel and artillery positions and strategy positions. But then I was fortunate enough to get selected and go back to West Point to teach history.
Yeah.
Um, and then I was selected to get my PhD. And I went back in the last 10 years of my career. I taught history at West Point. I was also division chief of the international division there. And now I do leadership consulting, and I do keynotes, and I do staff rides with corporate leaders, which is so much fun. A lot of times I talk about history, and I don't have to grade papers, and it's really extraordinary. And I work up at the Baseball Hall of Fame at Cooperstown, New York. I'm an part-time educator up there, so I have a great
Terrific.
life. Yeah, I'm really
You
very,
have a
very
great
grateful.
life.
Yeah,
And I
so
think the way you've approached this chapter of life with such gusto is a model. It's terrific. And so you've woven history, but activity into it. What kind of, how did you get to this perspective from retirement? You have a TED talk out there, which I recently had a chance to watch. You can look it up on YouTube, but it was earlier in your retirement
yes,
journey.
it
What the
was
kids are
11
saying
years
these
ago.
days,
Yeah,
journey.
yeah.
Yeah. So from 11 years to now, kind of talk about the layers of realization that got you to where you are today. Because obviously you're very settled, and you're exuding great energy. How did you go from kind of retirement to here?
I think, I think that anything that I say about leadership, I learned from a great leader. But one of them told me that really fundamentally, what the hard thing that we do at the end of our careers is or through your careers, how do you translate your success into significance? And I was coached that you have to be very intentional on what you define success to be, and very intentional on what you think significance is, and then work hard at connecting them. And I think that has some things that have happened, I think have happened by accident, but I don't think I would have been able to take advantage of them if I wasn't mature about who I was and what I wanted, even during some points of real turmoil, in my life. I got divorced after I retired. And so that was tricky, in fact,
Tricky. Yeah.
yeah, like my TED Talk, I'm very proud of, but like 11 weeks later, my marriage imploded. So I haven't watched my TED Talk in a number of years because I give myself credit for it, and I do believe in the message. It was just a very tricky time in my life for
Yeah.
it, but yeah, and so I just note, like, I worked for somebody who then was at the Hall of Fame, and so he got me the job up there. Although it's interesting, when I went up, he came to my retirement ceremony. I was like, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, I teach part time at the Baseball Hall of Fame." I go, "I'm going to teach part time at the Baseball Hall of Fame too. Get me the job because I'm a big baseball fan. Go Mets!" But
Yeah.
I was up at my interview at the Baseball Hall of Fame, and I realized about halfway through that I didn't know if it was a paid position. Everyone's like,
That's
I
hilarious.
mean, I'll do it if they're asking, but I do get paid. It
That's
doesn't pay for
good.
gas really to go up there.
What
I
do you
drive up
teach at
there.
the
It's about
Baseball Hall of
3.5 hours.
Fame?
Say again?
What do you teach?
I teach New York State children largely, but I do mostly civil rights and baseball. I do mostly Jackie Robinson
Okay.
and that program, but I teach really anything they need, as long as I'm like a step ahead of,
So
eighth
you
graders.
go, they'll say this is the topic, you'll go research it with your history
Right.
discipline, if you will, and come back with a
Right. And
program.
I've helped write some of the teaching modules, for the other instructors. So I'll do geography and baseball. I can do statistics in baseball. My father was a member of Society of Baseball Researchers. So I do know sabermetrics, Moneyball type of things. I'll
Yeah.
do women in baseball, technology in baseball for that. And because I have a PhD, I also teach college students labor history through baseball. So I'll go up for special programs for that because I'm a historian. So that's what I do. Yeah, it's great.
Astonishing. So like just to summarize the topics that we have embraced in this conversation, we've gone from all the various forms of dance, which you rattled off, the various, we're now talking about labor history through baseball at a PhD, as a PhD, teaching college students, teaching New York children about civil rights through baseball. These are all the things that you do.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So, and there's a saying that, life is short, but it can be big if you're brave, and courage never
Yeah.
quits.
What a
Yeah.
story. What do you think about classmates and connection and how the class can, you have all these insights. What do you think about this stage of life with the class, and just how should we all kind of connect up, in your opinion?
I run into a lot of classmates just because I'm at West Point as often as I am. And I hope that we will connect during occasions that are happy. Because there was
Yeah.
a run there where I saw classmates at funerals, and
Yeah.
I hope that we spend some effort, because we're still, on the left side of that bell curve, and so I think leaning in even more to make sure that we connect with each other during moments of joy and achievement and solace, without sorrow, I think is very important. Kevin McKelvey, I owe a call to. He just called me to check in on me. I haven't seen him in a while, and I wouldn't have gotten
Yeah.
through West Point without Kevin McKelvey or Karen Phelps for sure, or
My
my
problem with Kevin is whenever we talk about a serious topic, about half the time we're just laughing about other nonsensical things, because he and I just, so it's
Right,
like
yeah,
our
exactly.
efficiency rate is very low, but boy, I really love talking to him.
Yeah, and I think connecting and doing that and just reaching out, and there are very few people who have known me for as long as my classmates.
Right.
And I want to honor that because who I am is because of the the conversations I've had with people for 61 years, and some of the most significant ones started in 1982.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a matter of honoring myself and them, of saying, what a journey, what a journey. And
I think that's
and
that's a great insight, is that, and I hadn't even been able to articulate it that well, is we put our center of attention on the positive side of the ledger, left of bang, if you will, as the Marines say, right? So let's put the attention now, celebrating your dance successes, celebrating people's families and grandchildren and things, because we'll have plenty of time and plenty of opportunity to have the sad stuff later on, health and folks passing away. So that's coming anyway. So we might as well spend more time on the front end of it, enjoying each other, right?
Yeah.
That's great.
But
Great insight.
I made more than my share of mistakes. A lot of my classmates were there when I made many of them.
Sure.
The just being a colonel is not because I didn't make mistakes. It's because I made the mistakes, and because people, called me out on them by calling me back in and saying, "Come on, honey, come on back. Remember who you are. Remember who you want to be." And so I think in looking at my mistakes, being able to weave them into who I ended up becoming makes me not regret them. It just kind of makes them a stitch. It makes them a stitch in the tapestry of how that is. And I look back and I go, I wouldn't have the compassion that I had in this leadership situation if I hadn't been offered that compassion by somebody when I was in the same one. I just find the everyday courage that we all had together as young people. I think that it was really contagious, and I think I'm much braver and more courageous than I would have been if I hadn't been in such close proximity to just some really extraordinary, honest people. And I think that in a lot of ways we were bound by the honor code, but I think in just our personal honesty of saying, this is who I am. Actually, I have no energy to not be this person here.
In a later day, people kind of bang on about authenticity, but that's really what you're pointing to. Is it was not an honor code thing as much as we're just authentically with each other.
Yeah, I had a battalion commander that said, who was like airborne ranger long before vulnerability and authenticity, which I do value. But he said, vulnerability as a leader is not a sign of weakness; it's an act of generosity. It's so that nobody feels alone in the formation. And I think I hope any one of our classmates know what it's like to feel alone in the formation, and then know what a leader or teammate's done to erase that and redeem that. And I know that I had those people in my life, so I'm very grateful.
Yeah. And I think we can help each other with this beginner's experience, because at 61, it's actually hard to be a beginner. Your dance stories are an excellent example of how you go into that. And learning is actually really hard now because we have this belief that we can't start at anything over. But if you're going to learn how to do any of these hobbies, really, you got to start from scratch.
Yes. Yeah. And it's fun. It's fun knowing that I'm not done.
Terrific.
Yeah. So thank you, Paul.
McDermott, you are one of the best of us. I really enjoy your energy and talking to you. And I know the classmates are going to love listening to this podcast.
Oh, thank you so much, Paul. So it was a real pleasure, real honor. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Courage Never Quits podcast, where any member of the class of 1986 who is willing to tell their story will be a guest. To get the word out and stay up to date on the latest episodes, hit the like and subscribe button. With over 900 living graduates, we have a lot of stories to tell, and you don't want to miss any of them. We'll see you in the next episode.